Our doctrine this week is redemption, and to redeem means to buy back or to free from distress or harm. So it's the action of regaining possession of something that's been lost in exchange for a payment. The first important fact about redemption is it is completely necessary. So ever since the fall in Genesis 3, the earth and all mankind has been held in bondage to sin. And sin requires a sacrifice. It's a debt that must be paid before freedom can be experienced. And the payment for sin is a perfect life. So the problem is that no man can live this perfect life, for all have sinned and fall short. And so this is what Jesus offers. He offers to pay the price for us. And because he lived a perfect price, a perfect life, he is able to meet the purchase price. We must accept his payment, or we will have to pay ourselves, and no one can make the full payment. So if the price is $100, it doesn't matter if you pay 1 cent or $99, you still come up short. No one is perfect enough to meet the payment, and therefore, apart from Christ, your payment will come up short and will leave you to live this life under sin's bondage and eternally under sin's unrestrained bondage. But when you accept Christ's payment, he redeems you from bondage to sin now and for all eternity. And so the second point for redemption is that redemption is already accomplished, but not yet complete. So redemption is the reversal of the fall. In part, this reversal means that those who are spiritually dead are made alive, Ephesians 2:4. And those who were children of wrath are now children of God, 1 John 3:1. Although our redemption was purchased on the cross and we receive it when we place our faith in Christ, we continue to live in a world that is under sin's bondage. So living in a fallen world as Christians means that we will experience trials and tribulations and will continue to struggle with our own sin. But because we've been redeemed, we have a living hope with the promise that there will be a day when all that is broken will be restored. God's people will inherit a new earth free from pain and suffering, where God will dwell with us once again. And so when you look at our passage this week, redemption shows up in our passage in chapter 1, verses 18 and 19. It says, "For you know that it was not with perishable things such as silver or gold that you were redeemed from the empty way of life handed down to you from your forefathers, but with the precious blood of Christ, a lamb without blemish or defect." So our life under sin's bondage was empty. It was without God, without hope, and without meaning. But we've been redeemed from it by the precious blood of Christ, not with something that can fade away or something that has no value, but with the infinitely precious blood of Christ, who was without blemish or defect, so that his blood could pay the price that sin demanded. Our redemption is therefore fully covered and cannot be undone. Peter says that because we've been redeemed, we ought to live as a redeemed people. He shows us that redeemed people will live holy lives, will live as a people who see that their sufferings are temporary. And so as we think about living in light of redemption, because we've been redeemed, we will no longer desire to walk in our old way of life. So if you think about it, would a person who'd been rescued from a brutal kidnapper, would they ever want to go back to that way of life? In the same way, we were redeemed from sin's harmful grasp. Why would we ever want to return to it? As redeemed children, we won't desire to live in sin. We'll want to live in the holiness of this new and abundant life that God gives us. So how has Christ's purchase of your freedom impacted the extent to which you desire to live a holy life? And what are you doing to pursue holiness in your life? As redeemed people will understand that the sufferings of this world are temporary. We will still feel pain, Yet the promise of redemption is that our pain and our hurt are not final. We have a living hope that cannot be destroyed, lost, or stolen because it rests on God's promise. When we don't believe in redemption, we will see our pain and our trials as all-encompassing. We'll live as if our lives are bound up in our troubles, defined by our pain, and we'll constantly pursue lesser things to soothe ourselves and try to solve our difficulties. But God extends a much better promise to us. When you see the finish line in front of you, you can endure the pain of the last lap. God has set the finish line for us. Our victory is secured, and when we set our eyes on it, we can endure our sufferings until we cross it and land in the arms of our great Redeemer.